My son called me. "Mom, we moved to another state last week. We forgot to tell you." I stood paralyzed for 5 seconds. I answered, "That is fine, son. Good luck." I hung up, opened my laptop, and sent an email to my lawyer with a very special attachment. 5 seconds. That was all I needed to understand that my life had just split in two. Matt's voice sounded distant, almost mechanical, as if he were reading a script someone else had written for him. It was Tuesday afternoon. I was making the slow-roasted pot roast my grandson Gavin loved so much when the phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. I saw his name on the screen and my heart skipped a beat. It had been 3 weeks since I last heard from him. "Mom, I gotta make this quick because I'm heading out," he started without even asking how I was. "We moved to Seattle last week. Vanessa got an incredible job there, and it turns out we just forgot to let you know. You know how these things go. It all happened so fast. We forgot to tell you. Like I was the neighbor. Like I was the lady selling tamales down on the corner. Like I wasn't the woman who birthed him, who spent sleepless nights nursing him through pneumonia at age 7, who pawned his grandmother's jewelry to pay for his college tuition. That's fine, son." My voice came out steadier than I expected. "Good luck in this new chapter." I hung up before he could hear the tremor in my hands. The silence that settled in my kitchen was so heavy I could feel it crushing my chest. I stared at the pot roast steaming on the stove, the freshly baked buttermilk biscuits covered with an embroidered dish towel, the toys I still kept for Gavin in a basket by the living room. Everything I had prepared with such tender care suddenly felt like a sick joke. But I didn't cry. Not right then. I walked to my bedroom, my footsteps feeling like they weighed a ton. I opened the nightstand drawer and pulled out my laptop, the one Matt had given me 2 years ago, saying, "So you can stay connected, Mom. You're not getting any younger." The irony of it all. I sat on the edge of the bed, the same bed I shared with Arthur for 32 years before the cancer took him away. I opened my email, my fingers shaking but resolute. I typed in the address for Mitchell, my trusted attorney of a lifetime. He had handled Arthur's will. He was there when I inherited the lot in Highland Park, that piece of dirt that was now worth over $1,500,000. The very same lot where 8 months ago I had agreed to let Matt and Vanessa build our family home. Our home. What a joke. I wrote a short direct message stripping away all the drama. "Mitchell, we need to start the process we discussed last week. I'm sending all the documentation attached. It's time to move." And then came the best part, the attachment. That file I had been secretly building for months while they thought I was just a foolish, sentimental old woman. Photographs, screenshots of text messages, audio recordings, copies of the documents I had supposedly signed without reading properly. According to Vanessa, bank statements, everything. Every humiliation documented. Every lie. Every dime they bled from me. I hit send and snapped the laptop shut with a dry click that echoed in my empty bedroom. Because the truth nobody tells you about being a mother is this. There comes a moment when love meets dignity at a crossroads, and you are forced to choose. For years, I chose love. I swallowed the humiliations. I turned a blind eye to the disrespect. I justified the unjustifiable. Vanessa just comes from a difficult family, I used to tell myself. Matt is just stressed with work. Being a daughter-in-law isn't easy. Lies I spun to avoid facing the most agonizing truth of all. My son had become a stranger, and I had allowed them to turn me into a burden in my own life. But that phone call that "we forgot to tell you," delivered with such casual indifference, was the drop that made the cup overflow. Or rather, it was the hammer that shattered the glass into a million unfixable pieces. I got up from the bed and walked back to the kitchen. I turned off the stove. The roast could wait. Or maybe nobody would ever eat it again. It didn't matter anymore. What mattered was that for the first time in 4 years, ever since Vanessa blew into our lives like a silent hurricane, I had made a decision. And this time, no one but me was holding the reins. I looked out the window at the street. Kids were playing catch. Mr. Albert was watering his lawn. Mrs. Lucy was sweeping her porch just like every afternoon. Life marched on normally for the rest of the world, but for me, everything had just irrevocably changed. I picked up my cell phone again and pulled up the last photo I had with Matt. He was 12. We were at Griffith Park. He had his arms wrapped around my neck, smiling with those crooked teeth that used to melt my heart. "Love you, Mom," read the message he had typed out that afternoon so many years ago. That boy didn't exist anymore, and the woman who would swallow anything just to keep him around, she was dead too. Because sometimes real love isn't about holding on. Sometimes it's about letting go. And sometimes letting go means fighting tooth and nail for what is yours before they strip you of everything, including your dignity. I slipped the phone into my pocket and took a deep breath. In 72 hours, my son was going to be served with a court summons that would change everything. And when that happened, he would finally understand that forgetting to tell your mother you moved has consequences. Because I hadn't forgotten a thing. Absolutely nothing. But before we keep going, make sure you're subscribed to the channel and let us know in the comments what city or country you're watching from. We love knowing how far our stories travel. 4 years ago, when Matt called to say he wanted to introduce me to someone special, I felt that specific thrill only a mother can understand. My boy, my only child, had finally found someone who made him happy after spending so long buried in his work as an engineer. It was a Sunday in October. I had made a beautiful brisket, Matt's favorite dish since he was a kid. I set the table with the linen tablecloth Arthur gave me for our 15th anniversary. I pulled the good china out of the cabinet. I even bought fresh flowers for the centerpiece. I wanted everything to be flawless. When the doorbell rang, I dried my hands on my apron and opened the door wearing a massive smile. Vanessa was nearly 5'7". She wore high heels that made her look even more imposing. She was dressed in a burgundy tailored suit that practically screamed money. Her brown hair fell perfectly over her shoulders. Her makeup was flawless. She was beautiful. I couldn't deny that. But there was something in her eyes I couldn't quite decipher in that moment. "A pleasure, Mrs. Sullivan." She offered her hand instead of a hug. Her grip was firm, bordering on aggressive. "Matt has told me so much about you." Matt was glowing. I had never seen him like that. With that light in his eyes, that smile plastered across his face. He was genuinely in love, and I wanted him to be happy. So I silenced that little voice in my head, warning me that something didn't quite fit. During lunch, Vanessa talked nonstop about her job at a consulting firm, about her business trips to Portland and Austin, about the deeply ambitious plans she had mapped out. Matt could barely get a word in. He just sat there looking at her like a love-struck fool while she dominated every second of the conversation. "What a cozy house you have, Mrs. Sullivan." Vanessa glanced around the living room. The way she said cozy made me feel like she had just called it small and outdated. "Matt told me you've lived here for almost 30 years. 32, I corrected her, trying to keep my tone warm. "I grew up here. My son grew up here. This house has history." "Right, of course history is important," she replied, flashing a smile that never reached her eyes. "Though sometimes we need to know when it's time to move on, don't you think?" That was the first red flag, but I let it slide. The following months were an absolute whirlwind. Matt came to visit less and less. He used to spend his Sundays with me, helping fix things around the house. We'd talk for hours over coffee. Now it was just a string of excuses. "Vanessa wants to try that new restaurant. We have plans with Vanessa's friends. Her family invited us to go up to Aspen." Her family, as if his didn't even exist. In February, 6 months after they met, Matt called me, practically vibrating with excitement. "Mom, I asked Vanessa to marry me, and she said yes. We're getting married in August." 6 months of dating. 6 months to decide to spend the rest of your life with someone. "Don't you think that's a little fast, honey?" I dared to ask. "You guys barely know each other, Mom. When you meet the right person, you just know. You and Dad got married fast too, didn't you?" He had a point. Arthur and I got married after a year of dating, but it was different. Or at least, that's what I desperately wanted to believe. The wedding took place in an elegant botanical garden in Bel Air. Vanessa wanted everything perfect, everything strictly controlled. I offered to help with the expenses. I was the mother of the groom, after all. "Don't worry about it, Mrs. Sullivan," Vanessa told me with that unmistakable smile of superiority. "My parents have already covered everything. You just relax and enjoy yourself." I felt like a mere guest at my own son's wedding. During the ceremony, when the priest asked if anyone had any objections, a dark thought crossed my mind, but I shoved it deep down into the darkest corner of my brain. Matt looked so incredibly happy, so complete. Who was I to ruin that? After the wedding, things shifted even faster. Matt and Vanessa moved into a condo in West Hollywood, beautiful, modern, but outrageously expensive. When I went to visit for the first time, Vanessa opened the door with a tight, strange smile. "Mrs. Sullivan, what a surprise. Matt didn't mention you were coming." "I spoke to him this morning. He told me to drop by," I replied, holding a container of the chicken noodle soup I had made for them. "Oh, right. Well, come in, but it really would have been better to coordinate this beforehand, just so the house could be presentable." The house was immaculate, too immaculate. It felt like a showroom, not a home. That visit lasted exactly 20 minutes. Vanessa had a crucial meeting, and I understood that her job was very demanding. 3 months later, on Matt's 34th birthday, he didn't answer my calls. I called 5 times, nothing. I sent texts, nothing. I spent the entire afternoon staring at the red velvet cake I had baked for him, sitting there untouched, mocking me. The next day I received a dry text. "Sorry, Mom, it slipped my mind. Vanessa threw a surprise party with her friends and I stayed off my phone." It slipped his mind, his birthday, the day I brought him into this world after 18 agonizing hours of labor? That night I cried for the first time. I cried clutching Arthur's old pocket watch, that watch he always carried, which I now kept in my nightstand like a sacred relic. "Oh, Arthur," I whispered into the dark of my bedroom, "what is happening to our son?" But the worst was yet to come. I couldn't even fathom what Vanessa had planned, nor how she was going to weaponize the very motherly love I felt against me. The following months were like watching someone die in slow motion. Every unanswered call, every hollow excuse, every "I'll call you later, Mom," that never materialized. It was like they were ripping out a tiny piece of my soul every single time. February arrived with its suffocating cold and its empty promises. On my 66th birthday, I woke up early like always. I made coffee, sat at the kitchen table, and waited. I waited for the call that usually came at 7 in the morning without fail. The call where Matt would sing Happy Birthday, entirely out of tune, but with all his heart, exactly like he did when he was a little boy. 7 o'clock passed 8, 9. At 10 in the morning, I got a text message. "Happy birthday, Mom. Sorry I couldn't call. Been in meetings since early. We love you so much." We love you, plural, as if Vanessa's love for me was actually a real thing. March brought another stab to the chest. At my dear friend Eleanor's party, I was in the kitchen helping serve the punch when I heard the voice of Rose Eleanor's cousin talking in the living room. My name floated through the conversation like a blaring siren. "Yeah," a friend of mine who works with Vanessa told me. "She says at the office she's always complaining about her mother-in-law, saying she's way too needy, always demanding attention, that Matt can't even live his own life because his mother won't let go." The ladle slipped from my hand, splashing warm punch across the floor. "And what about Matt? What does he say?" another voice asked. "From what Sandra said, Matt doesn't even defend her anymore. Says Vanessa has him eating out of the palm of her hand, that Mrs. Sullivan called crying one day because it had been 3 weeks since she'd heard from them. And Vanessa told Matt his mother was just manipulative, using tears to guilt-trip him." Manipulative. Me, the woman who worked double shifts as a secretary so her son could study engineering at a private university. The woman who sold the deed to the little plot of land my mother left me in the arts district to pay for his exchange program in the States. The woman who became a widow and never remarried, just to dedicate every ounce of attention to that boy who now saw me as a burden. That night, sitting alone in my house, I did something I never thought I'd do. I opened Facebook and searched for Vanessa's profile. I rarely messed around with social media, but I needed to understand. I needed to see what she was projecting to the world. The profile was littered with photos. Her and Matt at fancy restaurants, at the beach, at parties with friends. Perfect smiles, rehearsed poses, sickly sweet captions about true love. I kept scrolling and found a picture from Christmas. The exact same Christmas where I had been present, completely invisible in that Beverly Hills mansion. The photo showed Vanessa, Matt, and her parents. The caption read, "Family Christmas, so blessed to have the best in-laws in the world." I didn't exist. Not a single mention. It was as if I hadn't even been there, as if I simply didn't exist at all. May arrived with a phone call that would change the trajectory of everything. It was Saturday morning. I was watering the plants in the backyard when the phone rang. Matt. My heart did that foolish, hopeful little jump again. "Mom, how are you?" His voice sounded bizarrely upbeat, almost forced. "It's been a while since we talked." 3 months. Exactly 3 months since our last real conversation. "I'm right here, son, same as always." "That's great. Listen, Mom, Vanessa and I want to drop by this afternoon. We have something really important to tell you. Something that's going to make you very happy." They arrived at 5 in the afternoon. Vanessa wore a beige dress, dark sunglasses she didn't take off until she stepped inside, and that smile I had finally learned how to decode. Fake, calculating, dangerous. "Mrs. Sullivan, your house is so lovely." She looked around as if seeing it for the very first time. "It has such a traditional charm." We sat in the living room. Matt was a nervous wreck, fidgeting, actively avoiding my gaze. Vanessa, on the contrary, was perfectly relaxed, in absolute control of the room. "Mom, we have wonderful news." Matt finally looked at me. His eyes were shining, but I couldn't quite tell if it was pure joy or something else entirely. "Vanessa is pregnant. You're going to be a grandmother." The world stopped spinning for a second. A grandmother. I was going to be a grandmother. A grandson. The continuation of Arthur, of me, of our family. "But that's not all," Vanessa chimed in, elegantly crossing her legs. "We also want to share our future plans with you. Matt and I have been thinking a lot about the kind of life we want to give our baby. The condo we're in is just too small to raise a child. We need space, a yard, a place where he can grow up happy and secure." Matt finally spoke up. "Mom, we were thinking about your lot, the one in Highland Park, the one Dad left you." My lot. The land Arthur bought 20 years ago with a lifetime of savings. The land that had skyrocketed in value year after year because the neighborhood became one of the most sought-after spots in the city. A prime piece of real estate in an unbeatable location. My nest egg, my safety net. We would build a beautiful house there, 2 stories, a big garden, and you would live with us. We'd be a real family. A real family, as if we hadn't been one before. Vanessa pulled some flawlessly folded papers from her designer bag. "It's just a temporary authorization, so Matt can pull the permits and start building on the lot. You retain full ownership. It's just red tape." I looked at Matt, desperately searching for any warning sign in his eyes. All I saw was hope. "Okay," I whispered, "but I want to read everything before I sign." Vanessa smiled, and that smile should have been the blaring siren warning me that I had just made the colossal mistake of my life. The next 3 months were a hurricane of conflicting emotions. On one hand, Matt came back into my life. He called almost every day, dropped by to see me on weekends. He even walked through the farmer's market with me one Saturday, just like when he was a kid. On the other hand, something felt deeply off. It was all too perfect, too sudden. Vanessa orchestrated everything with military precision. She'd show up at my house with binders full of blueprints, fixture catalogs, contractor estimates, always smiling, always polite, always pushing for things to move just a little faster. One afternoon in July, Vanessa brought Bernard over. He was an escrow agent, a guy in his mid-40s, wearing a sharp suit, a rehearsed smile, and a handshake that squeezed entirely too hard. He opened his briefcase on my dining room table and slid a stack of documents in front of me. "This is just a temporary building authorization. You retain complete ownership, strictly procedural." I took the pen he handed me. I looked at my son, searching for a single flicker of doubt. I only saw excitement and hope. I signed 1, 2, 3 pages, my full name on every dotted line. 2 weeks later, the bulldozers arrived at my lot. By September, the framing was up. It was a stunning house. I couldn't deny that. 2 stories, modern facade, massive windows. One Sunday, while we were having lunch at my place, Vanessa dropped the bomb. Mrs. Sullivan, we have wonderful news. She rubbed her 5-month belly. It's a boy. We're going to name him Gavin after my grandfather. Gavin. They didn't even entertain the thought of naming him Arthur after his paternal grandfather. And with the baby coming, we really need to speed up the construction, Vanessa continued. The problem is the budget is getting a little tight. The cost of materials went through the roof. You know how the market is right now? Matt cleared his throat, looking wildly uncomfortable. Mom, we were thinking that since the land is yours and the house is going to be for all of us, maybe you could help out with a portion of the construction costs. There it was. The real reason behind this sudden, miraculous reconciliation. How much do you need? $425,000. Vanessa said it without blinking. I know it sounds like a lot, but it's an investment. It's for the house where your grandson is going to grow up. $425,000. My retirement savings. Arthur's life insurance payout. Years of hard work. My financial cushion. My security. I wired the money directly to the builder's account. I watched my bank balance plummet in a single day, leaving me with a meager $25,000 in reserves. In December, Gavin was born. When Matt called me from the hospital, I was standing by the door with the baby bag I had bought, packed with the little gifts I had knitted with my own 2 hands. Mom, it's better if you don't come today. Vanessa is exhausted and needs to rest. We'll let you know tomorrow. Tomorrow turned into 3 days. When they finally let me come up to the maternity ward, Gavin was already 4 days old. The room was drowning in flowers, balloons, and visitors. Vanessa's parents, her sisters, her friends. I walked in holding my humble little gift, my heart quietly breaking in my chest. Vanessa let me hold Gavin for exactly 5 minutes. Careful with his head. Like this? No. Let me show you how to do it. February arrived, and the house was nearly finished, spectacular from the curb. But when I went to see my supposed bedroom, my heart dropped straight into my stomach. It wasn't a bedroom. It was a glorified utility closet in the back, small, dark, with a microscopic bathroom, and a single window staring directly at the neighbor's brick wall. It's just temporary, Mom, Matt explained quickly, just until we get organized. A lie. It was all a lie. The move was pure chaos. My furniture was scattered randomly throughout the new house. My living room set ended up in a drafty sitting area. My dining table was shoved into a corner. My paintings hung on walls Vanessa deemed appropriate. All my things tossed around, but nothing truly felt like mine. The rules came down in the second week. Vanessa called them cohabitation agreements and typed them up on a sheet of paper stuck to the fridge with a magnet. Kitchen hours, 7 to 8 in the morning and 6 to 7 in the evening. Outside those hours, please do not use the stove. No unannounced guests without 24 hours prior notice. Laundry days on Tuesday and Friday. Maximum 2 loads. Strictly prohibited to enter Gavin's room without authorization. I read that list, feeling the humiliation burn my cheeks. Prohibited from entering my own grandson's room. The degradations became a daily routine. One day, Vanessa walked into my little back room without knocking. Mrs. Sullivan, did you use my shampoo? No, I have my own. Good, because yesterday it was full and today it's halfway gone. And since you're the only one who goes into the upstairs bathroom when you clean, she was accusing me of being a thief on my own land, with my own money poured into every square inch of that house. In May came another blindside. We were eating dinner when Vanessa dropped the next bomb. Mrs. Sullivan, we need to talk about something important. The truth is, the household expenses are getting really high. Water, power, gas, property taxes, everything went up. We think it's only fair that you contribute a proportional share. She slid a piece of paper across the table, a highly detailed spreadsheet. At the bottom, in bold red numbers, suggested monthly contribution, $2,200. $2,200. Almost half my pension. I looked at Matt desperately, waiting for him to step up and defend me. Mom, it's only fair. Everyone has to pitch in. That night, sitting alone in my cramped back room, I ran the numbers. With that payment, I'd have barely anything left for groceries, medication, transportation, nothing. But then I remembered something. I remembered that months ago, when I first started feeling a knot in my stomach about all this, I had called Mitchell. He had insisted on reviewing the paperwork. "Bring me everything you signed, Sarah, everything." And I had handed over copies of every single document. I dug into the back of my closet and pulled out the old shoebox where I kept my important papers. I found Mitchell's business card and a handwritten note he had attached to it. "Sarah, when you are ready to make a move, call me." I slipped the card into my pocket. It wasn't time yet. I needed more evidence, because something deep in my gut told me the worst was still coming. And I was right. June, July, and August blurred into a thick fog of daily humiliations that made me question if I even existed anymore, or if I had just become a ghost haunting my own property. The mornings were the worst part. I'd wake up at 5:30 before anyone else, just so I could use the kitchen without being a nuisance. I brewed my coffee in absolute silence, terrified the coffee maker would beep too loud. Once, a spoon slipped into the sink, and Vanessa came storming down the stairs. "Mrs. Sullivan, it's 6 in the morning. Gavin just went down 2 hours ago. Could you please be a little more considerate?" I apologized as if I had committed a felony, as if making a sound in my own kitchen was a mortal sin. One afternoon in August, I did something that would alter the course of everything. I took the bus downtown to the old brick building where Mitchell had run his law firm for 40 years. He welcomed me with a warm, fatherly hug, poured me a cup of coffee, sat me down, and then pulled a thick manila folder out of his desk drawer. "Sarah, what I'm about to tell you is going to be incredibly hard to hear, but you need to know." My heart hammered against my ribs. "The papers you signed were not a temporary building authorization. It was a transfer of development rights. Basically, you handed Matt and Vanessa the legal right to build on your land and register the structure entirely in their names." The room started to spin. What does that mean? It means that the house, even though it sits on your dirt, is legally their property. If they wanted to, they could sue you for unauthorized use of the premises and force you to pay rent just to live there. But Bernard said it was temporary, that I kept ownership. Bernard lied. Or worse, he knew exactly what he was doing. I ran a background check on that title agent. He has multiple complaints filed against him for real estate fraud. He's a close personal friend of Vanessa's. They do business together all the time. The tears finally broke, spilling down my face without control. "Mitchell, I put $425,000 into that place. It was everything I had left." "I know, Sarah. And there's more." I dug into Vanessa's financials. She's carrying $210,000 in credit card debt. She's currently being sued by 2 major banks. That woman is desperately bleeding for cash. Suddenly, the puzzle pieces violently snapped together. The highly convenient pregnancy, the sudden renewed interest from Matt, the rushed construction, the relentless pressure. What can I do? We can sue. We have solid grounds for Frog to recover your investment, to fight for the property rights. But I need you to bring me more proof. Audio recordings, text threads, documents, anything and everything you can get your hands on. I walked out of that office transformed into an entirely different person. I was no longer the naive grandmother who believed in the pure intentions of her son. I was a woman who had just realized she had been robbed blind by her own flesh and blood. I bought a tiny digital voice recorder at an electronics shop downtown. It cost me $400, money that physically hurt to spend. But I knew it was an investment. From that moment on, every conversation, every demeaning comment, every absurd demand was recorded. In September, my rent went up. Vanessa called me into the living room. "Mrs. Sullivan, the $2,200 a month just isn't cutting it anymore. Utilities spiked again. Starting this month, it's going to be $3,000. $3,000? Well over half my pension. There is no way I can pay that, Vanessa." "Well, then we're going to have to look at other alternatives. Maybe it's time you start looking for a more affordable place to live." The recorder in my pocket caught every single syllable, every veiled threat, every calculated attempt to evict me from my own land. In October, Mitchell called me with even more damning discoveries. The money from the loan they took out using your land as collateral was used to wipe out Vanessa's debts and buy that brand new SUV sitting in their driveway. It didn't go toward the construction. The construction was fully funded by your $425,000. The following months were purely about preparation. Mitchell drafted the lawsuit real estate fraud, illegal use of property as collateral, forgery, illegal dispossession. We compiled all the evidence, the audio files, the photographs, the bank statements, sworn affidavits from Eleanor and my sister Susan. In November, Vanessa dropped the final bomb. Mrs. Sullivan, Matt and I have been talking. This living arrangement just isn't working out. We think it would be best for everyone if you found your own space, a little apartment nearby maybe. That way we keep our privacy, but we can still stay in touch. They wanted to kick me out. They wanted my land, my life savings, my legacy, and they wanted to toss me in the trash like a broken piece of furniture that no longer matched the decor. Let me think about it, I answered. I walked back to my room and called Mitchell. It's time. Prep the filings. I want to pull the trigger next week. Are you absolutely sure, Sarah? Dead sure. 1 week later, on a Tuesday, Matt called me. It was noon. I was at the grocery store picking out vegetables. Mom, I gotta make this quick because I'm heading out. We moved to Seattle last week. Vanessa got an incredible job there, and it turns out we just forgot to let you know. The world just stopped. The cashier at the register was asking for my payment, but I couldn't hear her. I only heard those words looping in my head. We forgot to tell you. They had moved away with my grandson with my $425,000 cash investment with my mortgaged land, and they had forgotten to let me know. That's fine, son, I replied with a chilling calmness I didn't actually feel. Good luck in this new chapter. I hung up. I left the groceries sitting right there on the belt, walked straight home, went up to my room, locked the door, opened my laptop, and logged into my email. I typed a message to Mitchell. It's time. File it all today. I'm sending the final recordings attached. I hit send. Then I did one more thing. I opened the big family group chat on my phone, the one with my sisters-in-law, my cousins, my sister. I typed out a massive, detailed message. I exposed everything. The scam, the fraud, the relentless humiliations, Vanessa's crippling debts, the illegal loan. I attached photos of the legal documents. I hit send, and I powered off my phone. I sat on the edge of my bed and clutched Arthur's pocket watch to my chest. It's done, honey. I'm done playing the fool. I'm done letting them walk all over me. Now it's my turn. 48 hours after sending that email, I got the call I had been waiting for. Matt. Mom. His voice sounded frantic, completely shattered. Mom, what the hell did you do? Good morning, Matt. Don't good morning me. A court summons just got delivered to our door. You're suing us. Your own mother is suing us. Yes, I am suing you and your wife for fraud, illegal dispossession, and the unlawful use of my property. You've lost your mind. Everything was done in good faith. You agreed to all of this. I agreed because I was lied to. I signed documents you swore were temporary permits, when in reality they were a transfer of development rights. You used my land as collateral for a $600,000 loan without my consent, and you took my $425,000 to pay off Vanessa's debts and buy yourselves a new car. Dead silence on the other end of the line. Mom, I didn't know. You didn't know what, Matt? That your wife was drowning in $210,000 of credit card debt, that she was fired from her last job for embezzlement, that you kept me locked in a utility closet after I dumped my entire life savings into your house. On Monday, we went to the preliminary hearing. Mitchell picked me up at 8 in the morning. I put on my best dress, a dark mocha tone, the one Arthur bought me for our last anniversary together. I wanted to look dignified, unbreakable. And there they were, Matt in a suit, with deep dark bags under his eyes, looking destroyed. Vanessa in a modest black dress, playing the part of the fragile victim, but I knew her game inside out by now. The judge read the charges out loud. Real estate fraud, forgery, illegal use of property as mortgage collateral, unlawful dispossession. Their lawyer tried to argue it was all a massive misunderstanding, that I had given full consent that this was just an ugly family dispute that didn't warrant federal court time. Mitchell dismantled every single argument with surgical precision. He played the audio files where Vanessa threatened to kick me out onto the street. He presented the paper trail for the fraudulent loan. He handed over the sprawling investigative report on Bernard, the corrupt title agent. Your Honor, my client is a 68-year-old woman who was systematically stripped of her life's assets by her own son and daughter-in-law. She invested $425,000 of her sole retirement funds under the guise of building a multi-generational family home. Instead, she was banished to a maid's quarters extorted for rent on her own soil and ultimately abandoned without so much as a goodbye. The judge slowly shifted his gaze to Matt. Sir, is it true that you leveraged your mother's property as collateral for a mortgage loan without her explicit informed consent? Matt stammered. I thought she knew. Yes or no? Yes, Your Honor. That's enough. The judge slammed the file shut with a sharp crack. I am ruling in favor of the plaintiff to proceed. The lien on the property and the freeze on all bank accounts will remain in effect. I am officially ordering a criminal probe into Mrs. Vanessa regarding her business relationship with the notary agent, Bernard. Next hearing in 30 days for the presentation of additional evidence. 2 weeks later, Matt sought me out. He wanted to talk, no lawyers. No, Vanessa, just the two of us. We met at a neutral coffee shop. He looked like he had aged a decade in a single week. Mom, you were right about everything. Vanessa lied to me from day one. The debts, the previous fraud charges, her backdoor deals with Bernard, I had no idea. She ran a background check on me before we even met. She knew about the land Dad left you before I ever brought it up. She targeted me. And Gavin. Matt's eyes welled up with heavy tears. Vanessa is using him as leverage. She's threatening to take him away so I never see my son again if I testify on your behalf. I looked at my son, that boy I had raised with every ounce of love in my body. Matt, you did terrible things. You hurt me in ways I didn't even know a person could be hurt. But you are still my son. If you are truly willing to do the right thing, to stand up and face the truth, then we can try to rebuild something from the wreckage. I'm going to testify, Mom. I'm going to tell them everything, and I've already filed for divorce. At the second hearing, Matt sat on my side of the aisle. His testimony was an absolute massacre. He laid it all out, how Vanessa manipulated him, how they plotted to exploit the land, how they shoved me into that back room, how they extorted me for rent money. The judge listened to the entire confession, his expression growing darker by the minute. When it was over, it took him less than 5 minutes to deliver a ruling. I have seen a lot of ugly cases in my career on the bench, but this one is particularly repulsive. A mother fleeced by her own blood, an elderly woman treated like a parasitic nuisance on her own legally titled property. Therefore, I rule fully in favor of the plaintiff. I order the immediate restitution of the $425,000 sum, plus accrued interest and punitive damages. I am voiding the mortgage loan on the grounds that it was obtained through criminal fraud. Full ownership of the structure is hereby reverted to the plaintiff. Vanessa was convicted of felony fraud, 2 years suspended sentence, and 5 years of strict probation. Bernard got 4 years in federal prison. The house built on my lot went up for auction. A young couple bought it for $1,400,000. Later, I sold the raw land itself for $1,900,000. When the dust settled, I walked away with over $2 million. I bought myself a beautiful condo in Pasadena. 2 bedrooms, a balcony covered in plants overlooking a quiet park. My space, truly mine. I donated $250,000 to a foundation that provides legal aid to elderly women facing domestic financial abuse. Because I was lucky enough to know Mitchell, I was lucky enough to have the resources to fight back. So many women don't. A year after the trial, Vanessa landed a job in London. She petitioned the court to let her take Gavin. The judge granted it on the strict condition that she comply with every term of her probation and guarantee Matt full visitation rights during summer and holidays. Watching my grandson leave was agonizing. At the airport, I knelt down in front of him. Gavin was 3.5. Grandma, am I going to come back? You sure are, my sweet boy. You'll come visit on your vacations, and we're going to video chat every single week. Vanessa walked over. She looked completely different. No heavy makeup, wearing plain clothes, her hair tied back. She almost looked human. Mrs. Sullivan, I know it means absolutely nothing now, but I am truly sorry for everything. Just take care of my son. He's the only thing that matters. Matt stood beside me, quietly weeping as the plane took off, but he didn't give up. Every single month, he deposited money into my account to slowly pay back the emotional debt of what they took from me. It wasn't court-ordered, it was his choice. It was him genuinely trying to buy back his soul. 6 months after Gavin left, I got a call from the director of the foundation I had donated to. "Sarah, we wanted to invite you to give a keynote speech. There are so many women going through the exact nightmare you survived. Your story could really give them a lifeline." At first, I hesitated. I didn't see myself as a role model for anything. But then I thought about all the women sitting in their own versions of that cramped utility closet, swallowing indignities, fully believing that a mother's love means taking the abuse in silence. I accepted. The talk was held at a community center on the east side. There were 40 women in the room, mostly over 50, all carrying stories that echoed mine. Sons who turned into total strangers, daughters-in-law who hijacked their homes, life savings that vanished into thin air. When I finished speaking, half the room was in tears. A woman in her 70s approached me afterward. "Sarah, I've been living with my daughter and son-in-law for 10 years. They treat me worse than the hired help, but I always thought it just had to be that way. I thought I didn't have a choice." "You always have a choice," I told her, gripping her hands tightly. "It might be terrifying, and it might hurt like hell, but your dignity is worth far more than the comfort of staying quiet." I gave 3 more talks that year. I personally helped 2 elderly women retain lawyers. I started a small support group that met in my condo once a month. 8 women who had finally found the spine to say enough. On the morning of my 70th birthday, I woke up in my own bed. The California sun was pouring through the crisp white curtains I'd picked out myself. And for the first time in years, I felt an emotion I thought I had forgotten entirely: pure joy. Matt arrived early, and to my utter shock, he wasn't alone. Gavin had flown in to spend his summer vacation in the States. "Grandma!" The boy sprinted straight into my arms. I held that little boy tight against my chest, and in that moment, it all clicked. I had gained so much more than I had ever lost. Not a picture-perfect house, not a flawless, cinematic family. I had won the freedom to be imperfect, the freedom to make mistakes, to draw hard boundaries, to say no, to say yes, to breathe without asking for permission. That night, long after everyone had gone home, I sat out on my balcony, holding Arthur's pocket watch in the palm of my hand. The city lights sparkled down below. Millions of lights, millions of untold stories. "We did it, my love," I whispered into the evening breeze. "Our son finally learned his lesson. Our grandson knows exactly where his roots are." And I finally became myself again, because at the end of the day, that was the real victory. It's not about what you own, it's about what you refuse to let them steal from you. It's not about what you inherit, but what you build with your own 2 hands. It's not about what the world thinks of you, but what you think of yourself when you look in the mirror. And as I laid down in my bed in my small, beautiful condo that smelled like fresh coffee and blooming flowers, I smiled. Because finally, after all those years wandering in the dark, I had come home. Not to a house made of bricks and mortar, but to myself. If this story resonated with you, let me know in the comments. If you were in my shoes, what would you have done? And don't forget to click on the next video appearing on your screen right now. It's got a shocking emotional twist that will keep you glued to the edge of your seat from beginning to end.